the Handley Page Type O. This was Britain's most effective bomber during World War I. It first flew December 17, 1915, at which time it was the largest aircraft that had ever been built in the United Kingdom. The aircraft was to have both a practical application as a large bomber and a psychological effect. The Air Department of the Royal Navy, when requesting a bomber, specifically stated they wanted a bloody paralyzer of an aircraft. Aircraft designer Sir Frederick Handley Page understood the assignment. The aircraft would be used for strategic bombing and tactical bombing on German and Ottoman targets. Other duties included anti-submarine reconnaissance. The first variant of the Handley Page Type O was the O-100. Handley Page used an alphabetical system for naming aircraft. The O designation simply came after Type M and N. The 100 designation originally marked the 100-foot wingspan of the aircraft. The aircraft had large wings that folded to fit inside standard hangars of the time. Early models had two 250-horsepower Rolls-Royce engines. The engines drove four-bladed propellers, rotating in opposite directions to cancel torque. Engines were enclosed in armored nacelles, mounted between the wings on tubular steel struts. The fuselage was made of spruce. The aircraft was originally to be crewed by two men, enclosed in a glazed cockpit. The original armament was a rifle, provided to the observer engineer. The first trials of the aircraft proved it was slow. Despite having powerful engines, the aircraft had significant drag problems. Engineers had no experience working with such large aircraft. Thorough testing was important. Large honeycomb radiators were changed to tube radiators, reducing drag. Friction was problem solved in the control circuit, and the rudder balance was corrected over time. To reduce weight, the enclosed cockpit was ditched, as was much of the armor plating for the engines. Some of this saved weight was diverted to reinforcing the rear fuselage structure in an attempt to prevent the tail from vibrating and twisting, a problem that would later be identified as originating from asymmetrical movement of the elevators, which would be fixed by having them rigidly linked. By early 1916, the aircraft was looking quite different, with an open cockpit and longer nose, with room for a nose gunner. The final military variant of the aircraft was the Type O-400. This had a ring mounting in the nose for a machine gunner, a pair of post mountings in the mid-position, and a mounting in the rear fuselage. The O-400 had two 360-horsepower Eagle 8 engines. These engines did not have counter-rotating propellers, as did early versions to balance engine torque. This was causing directional instability with the Type O-100. The O-400 was able to negate the torque effects of having both engines rotating in the same direction by simply offsetting the fin. The O-400 was 62 feet, 10.25 inches in length, just over 19 meters, with a wingspan of 100 feet or 30 meters. Its maximum takeoff weight was 13,360 pounds, just over 6,000 kilograms. Its maximum bomb load was 2,000 pounds. Maximum speed was 97.5 miles per hour, or 157 kilometers an hour. Range was an impressive 700 miles, or 1,100 kilometers. The service ceiling was 8,500 feet, or 2,600 meters. The first O-100s were used in Europe in late 1916. They were used for tactical bombing operations on ports and railways, and daylight attacks on the German Navy. Naval targets were also attacked as far away as Constantinople, with two Type O's flying directly to British bases in the Mediterranean from England, over 2,000 miles, or 3,200 kilometers. In 1918, the improved O-400s were arriving in France in numbers, to begin carrying out larger bombing raids on targets inside Germany. The O-400s could carry the new 1,650-pound bombs, that's 750-kilogram bombs, which were aimed with advanced Drift Sight Mark 1A bomb sights. Raids were being conducted by up to 40 O-400s, which could cause legitimate disruption to the day-to-day activity in industrial cities. On the night of October 9, 1918, the city of Metz was bombed. One bomb hit a powder store and rocked the town. The damage was estimated by the Germans at 1 million marks. Strategic bombing was a new concept in World War I. It was first carried out by the Germans right at the start of the war, with Zeppelin attacks, the first of which occurred August 6, 1914, with the bombing of the Belgian city of Liège. The aerial bombing of cities was intended to destroy the enemy's morale. Zeppelins were slow, expensive, large, lumbering beasts, and overall ineffective. Germany employed 125 airships during the war, losing more than half, and sustaining a 40% attrition rate of their crews, the highest of any German service branch. Bombing from fixed-wing aircraft was first done by dropping bombs and grenades over the side, aimed by the naked eye. By the end of the war, dedicated bombers using bomb sights were developed. The Germans were the first to bomb cities during World War I using fixed-wing aircraft in the late summer of 1914, before the stabilization of the Western Front. Upwards to 50 bombs were dropped on Paris, some damaging historic sites. In May of 1917, the Germans began using dedicated bomber aircraft to attack England. Aircraft like the Gotha G bombers, and later giant Zeppelin Staaken R bombers. These aircraft were also largely ineffective as strategic bombers against Britain. The World War I bombing of Britain resulted in 1,414 dead and 3,416 injured, primarily civilians. Strategic bombing was only given serious consideration by the Entente powers towards the end of the war. After the formation of the Royal Air Force on the 1st of April 1918, British Prime Minister David Lloyd George promised to repay Germany for its bombing raids, with compound interest. Britain formed the Independent Air Force in June of 1918, a dedicated bombing force that brought together Entente air power, used to strike German railways, aerodromes, and industrial centers without coordination from the Army or Navy. The Handley Page 0400 bomber would be the most advanced bomber in the force, with the war ending before Britain's four-engined Handley Page V1500 bomber entered service. This bomber would have been capable of dropping 7,500 pounds of bombs on Berlin. The British Independent Force, under Major General Hugh Trenchard, targeted industrial centers deep in German territory. The British bombing campaign of Germany late war lived up to Prime Minister David Lloyd George's statement, with the British managing to drop 660 tons of bombs on Germany, more than twice what Germany had dropped on England throughout the entirety of the war. Of note, British bombings of German targets were less indiscriminate than the bombs that hit London from Zeppelins, which mostly hit the homes of civilians. British targeted bombings still made little difference in industry capability and would barely be worth a footnote in World War II terms. For comparison, the Allies dropped nearly 2 million tons of bombs on Germany during World War II. Ultimately, Britain's retaliatory bombing of Germany during World War I resulted in increased attempts by German aircraft to bomb available French targets, which resulted in disagreements between French and British leadership regarding the future of any further bombings during the war, which was already nearing its end. More than 400 Type 0400s were built in Britain before the end of World War I. Another 107 were license-built in the United States by the Standard Aircraft Corporation. The war's end saw a few of the aircraft converted for civilian use. 9 were used by the Handley Page Transport Company. 6 aircraft were sold to the Republic of China as transports, flying airmail and passengers. Alright, I'm Johnny. Thank you for unfolding some history with me on this large and interesting aircraft. Take care, and have a nice rest of your day.